Good morning. My name is Flo, and amongst other things in my life, I teach yoga. A lot of people ask me when they first start out whether they should do yoga or Pilates. So I thought I would just explain a little bit about what yoga is. I've made some notes so I don't just ramble in a random direction. So firstly, I'm not a Pilates teacher. I've done Pilates a handful of times in my life, and it was absolutely nails. I'm just going to give you a very basic summary of my understanding of what Pilates is, and then a bit more of an in-depth understanding, but on a kind of an introductory level, about yoga, and then the different styles of yoga, which is another question I get asked a lot. What style of yoga? Okay, so I've written this down. Pilates was created in the 1900s, and it's a physical conditioning method. It focuses more on core strength, stability, alignment, and controlled movement. So it's basically about functional improvement and functional change more on a physical level. But my understanding there is also some breath work involved in Pilates. But that's basically my understanding of Pilates. What I would say is if you're really not sure, try them both. Because different things work for different people, and it depends what you're looking for, what you're after, what you need. They say yoga finds you when you need it. So that's my understanding of Pilates. So it's more like a physical, functional thing for conditioning your body and core strength and other things. So maybe a Pilates teacher out there would explain a bit more about what it is. So yoga is thousands of years old, and it combines breath work, movement, meditation, self-awareness. It's basically a way of life, not just movement on a mat. A lot of people seem to think that yoga means flexibility. And yes, the postures are part of yoga. There are 8 different limbs to yoga, which if you're interested, you can read a book called The Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. I will write that down below. And it kind of focuses more on how you live your life rather than just the physical aspects of yoga. So yes, with certain styles of yoga you build strength and flexibility, but that's not just what it's about. There's a whole other side to it that a lot of people, including myself, maybe I'm just projecting, maybe it's only me that didn't know this, but there's all these other aspects to yoga that I didn't realise when I first started practicing. I thought it was just about being flexible. So we'll talk about the 8 limbs of yoga. It's referred to as the limbs of yoga, and then about the different styles of yoga. And this is really basic. So there may be people that are unhappy with what I say, but I'm not reciting the entire book, The Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. I'm just really, really briefly summarising so you get an idea of what things are. So if this upsets or offends anybody, I'm extremely sorry. That's not my intention. I just want to kind of explain on a very basic level a bit about the different aspects of yoga. So yamas, which is how we relate to other, and that looks at things like non-violence, truthfulness, non-stealing, and non-attachment. So it's how we interact with other people in our lives. Number 2, niyamas, and that's about how we care for ourselves. So cleanliness, contentment, self-discipline, self-study, and surrender. So how we interact with others, how we lead our lives. And then moving on to 3, which is asana, which is the physical practice, which is what most people think about when you talk about yoga. You know, someone sat in a lotus position with their legs crossed and their hands together. And so we'll talk about the asana practice in a bit, which is the physical postures. Number 4, pranayama, or breath regulation. Again, this is like a whole topic in itself, so just to mention. Number 5, pratyahara, turning the senses inward, cultivating inner focus. Number 6, dharana, focusing the mind. Number 7, dhyana, deep conscious meditation. And number 8, samadhi, enlightenment. And the sun just came out when I said samadhi, enlightenment, so I don't know what that means. Deep peace, transcendence, unity of self and the universe. And a lot of people talk about yoga meaning union, so the union of your mind, your body, your spirit, your soul, everything coming into union. So for me, on a personal level, I started out yoga to try and be more flexible. And I started with a 10-day challenge because I loved a challenge back then. And it was just to practice yoga every day for 10 days. And before the end of the 10 days, I felt like a totally different person. I felt calmer. I noticed a massive change in my mental health, my mental well-being, and my ability to sleep. So that was one of the main reasons that I wanted to continue. Yes, the flexibility was coming and the strength, but it was how I felt in myself after practicing yoga that's what kept me going. For me, I think my thoughts on this, and it's just my thoughts, is that you can achieve that sensation when you practice any sort of movement. Dance, running, golf, whatever. I don't know where golf came from. But with any sort of movement, if you're in the present moment, you're focusing on your breath, you're tuning into your body, I think you can achieve that state. It doesn't have to be, for me, the specific poses of yoga to achieve that state in your mind. I'm not diminishing yoga, I'm just saying that you can do other forms of movement and achieve a similar sort of state of mind if you use the other aspects like breath work and focus. This is just my opinion. The styles of yoga. This is not an exhaustive list, and there are so many different styles of yoga now, and a lot of them kind of like the lines are blurred between the different styles, especially some of the newer ones. And there's all sorts of things now like HIIT yoga and I don't know, lots of different things anyway. And you can have an opinion about them, whatever you like. But for me, whatever brings someone to their mat is a good thing. You just find one that works for you. But I'm going to do a little explanation. I think if you're really into like fitness and you want to kind of like burn calories in a yoga class, then something like power yoga, Ashtanga. And if you feel like you need that kind of ability to focus on inner calm, then something more like restorative or yin yoga. But I'm going to just explain a little bit what the words mean. And again, if I offend anybody with this, I'm really sorry. It's just meant to be a super, super quick explanation. So yin yoga is a really slow meditative practice. A lot of it's on the floor using props like bolsters and blankets and straps to help you stay in a position. So normally you'll hold a position in yin yoga for maybe like 3, 5, 10 minutes. It depends on the teacher and it depends on the class. So you stay in each shape for a really long time. So the idea of yin yoga and holding these poses for a really long period of time is that it helps to release the deep connective tissue. And slow doesn't mean easy. It can be a really good way of teaching yourself, teaching your body to sit in discomfort, to breathe through discomfort. And you can have some really big emotional releases when you hold these shapes because you're shifting stuff that you've held in your body for potentially years and years and years. So yin helps with flexibility as well as stillness and cultivating that kind of inner stillness, that inner calm, the inner peace, as well as a physical outer stillness. You're cultivating the inner stillness, the ability to just be. It's very powerful. Restorative yoga. So I would say, having been to quite a few restorative yoga classes, there's a wide variety of restorative yoga classes, which kind of range from, I guess, like a slow, gentle flow class, almost to verging on yin. So it depends very much on the teacher, but I would say that restorative yoga is normally fairly beginner friendly because the poses tend to be a bit more gentle and slow. So if you're interested in doing something super gentle, a restorative yoga class may be a good place to start. So Vinyasa, which is basically a flow class, where you move from flow means you move from one shape to another, to another, to another. And in a Vinyasa or flow class, a lot of different styles of yoga can be referred to as flow or Vinyasa. You're moving from one shape to the next and you're trying to link your breath to the movement, really focusing on that breath-movement connection. And sometimes it can be really gentle and slow, which doesn't mean easy, and sometimes it can be really fast and dynamic. So it very much depends on the teacher and the class. So sometimes when you go to a studio, for example, it will say flow class and it will say whether or not it's suitable for beginners. But you could always try. Have a go and see what happens. So Hatha, I think, is a really good place to start. for anyone who's completely new to yoga. It's a little bit more energetic than a restorative yoga class, or sometimes a lot more. But it focuses on like the foundation poses of yoga, and you tend to hold each pose for a little bit longer, so you're not kind of like firing from one thing to the next to the next. You actually have time to kind of understand the pose a little bit in your body, and to use props and focus on your breath. So I think it's a really good, Hatha yoga is amazing, I think, and it's a really good class for all levels. But if you're a beginner, it's a good place to start if you want to know where to start with yoga, unless it says specifically somewhere where you're going beginner yoga. Hatha is a good place to start. Power yoga, which as the name suggests maybe, can be quite a fiery practice, strong, dynamic, depending again on the teacher. Normally it's a power vinyasa class, so you're flowing through different poses, but it might include like a lot of like planks and side planks and sun salutations, but more kind of like at a rapid pace and holding more challenging poses, maybe even some arm balances. It's probably not the easiest place to start, but if you want to, go for it. Ashtanga. I've never practiced Ashtanga yoga because I don't really know why. Maybe I will one day. But it's a structured sequence of poses, and the poses are always done in the same order, and there are different series, the primary series, the secondary series. I'm not an expert at Ashtanga. It's very disciplined, very physically demanding, and it can build strength and stamina mentally as well as physically. Kundalini yoga, I would say, is extremely different, probably from a lot of the other like posture-based classes that you see out and about. So there's a lot of breath work and dynamic movements, and these movements can be quite small, but that doesn't mean that they're easy, and repeated a lot of times. And the idea is it's to awaken the Kundalini energy in your body through breath work, chanting, and these dynamic movements. So maybe read a bit more about Kundalini yoga, but just know that it's not the same as doing like a warrior pose or a downward dog. It's not that. Hot yoga. So hot yoga, as far as I understand, started with a guy called Bikram, and it became really popular, and he had, almost like Ashtanga, he had a set series of movements that he used to do, and Bikram yoga became really popular for a period of time. And then now the name Bikram isn't really used anymore, and if you want to know why, then you can Google it. And there's a film even about Bikram. But the hot yoga concept stayed on. So often people will ask me, what's hot yoga? And it just means that it's done in a studio that's heated. And I might be wrong with the temperature, but I Googled it and it says 26 degrees. And the idea is that helps to like warm your body up and soften your body so that you're more flexible. And also you sweat, which is a way of purging and detoxing. But you can do any yoga class in a hot yoga studio. You can do yin yoga, you can do restorative yoga, you can do power yoga, Ashtanga yoga. So the hot yoga just refers to the fact that the environment you're in is heated. And then the yoga class may be like a Bikram style Ashtanga type class, or it may be another type of class. So if it just says hot yoga, that doesn't really explain what it is for me. I would assume it would be a Vinyasa, like Hatha style class, but I would check. Yoga Pilates. Very different, but very similar in some ways with the physical aspects. Pilates to some styles of yoga. If you're not sure, I said this at the beginning and I'll say it again now, try both, because I could like go on forever about how amazing yoga is and how it's changed my life, but I'm not everybody, I'm just me. So you might hate yoga and love Pilates. Or you may want to do a bit of both. You may think some days I want to do Pilates because it's really helping me with this thing that I have, and other days I want to do yoga because I want more of that kind of like breathwork meditation aspect as well as the movement. So try both and decide for yourself, but this is just to give you a little bit of a basic understanding, hopefully, of the differences between the two. So you can ask other people, you can ask yoga teachers, you can ask Pilates teachers, you can ask anybody in the world, but at the end of the day, the only person who knows what works for you is you. And the only way you'll know is by trying. And likewise, I think like I tried yoga when I was younger, and it's not an age thing. It just wasn't for me at all. I didn't understand why we were lying on the floor. Why am I not running around sweating? And that was nothing to do with yoga. That was just I was not in the right headspace to start that practice. So not just different things are for different people, but also at different times in your life, different things work. For me, when I was younger, I used to run all the time. I used to love running. Not far, but it used to make me feel really good. And I thought yoga was boring and rubbish and all these kind of things, and I didn't understand why you would do it. And now I absolutely love it. So, you know, things change, we change, people change, the world changes. So yeah, if you've tried yoga in the past and it wasn't for you, maybe now it is. And likewise, maybe it was and now it isn't. Everything always changes. Anyway, I hope this is vaguely helpful. If you listen to any of this, thank you. And yeah, have a wonderful day. And the sun has now come out. It's been really cloudy this morning, but the sun has come out.